Welcome to the exciting rebirth of Superstar, featuring choose your membership rate as low as just $3 a month. At Superstar, you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, class passes for Synchronicity University, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to this very quick video, giving you some very quick thoughts on the very recent occurrence that took place at the Academy Awards, the 94th Academy Awards. And I know that it seems that, and it feels like a lot of the world is kind of divided. I know that this has been getting a whole lot of attention and energy by a lot of people out there. I think that when these important cultural moments happen, it is an invitation for us collectively to look at ourselves individually, to understand our own spiritual lessons. And so there's a core archetypal lesson that many of us in the collective are going through, but in our own unique and individual ways. And what's interesting, and what has been pointed out by many astrologers, literally it was Mercury moving into the sign of Aries the day that that happened, that this act that can be understood as one expression of the sign of Aries, right, the physical force of Aries, was on display. And so different people are having different reactions, right? That's part of our spiritual learning, to observe our own reactions and to learn about ourselves along the way, so that we can more consciously choose who we are going to be, and so that we can more consciously identify our own unique journeys towards embodying greater love and greater wisdom. That's true for each of us, even in displays like this. That is true for each of us involved. And so I wanted to very quickly just look at the astrology of these two individuals, of Will Smith and Chris Rock, so that we could understand it. Now, of course, energies, astrologically speaking, they always work out archetypally, meaning that they have a range of expression. There are different ways that they can work out. But what's very interesting is in that the charts of both of these people, we see Pluto, we see Saturn. And so the Saturnian energy is quite interesting, because Saturn can speak to limitation, it can speak to restriction, or at least needing to be mindful of the restrictions that are there. It can speak to maturity as well, and needing to practice maturity, to cultivate the skill of maturity. And then we have Pluto, and Pluto can represent power, power dynamics, power structures. And what we see in these charts is so fascinating, because I'm seeing Saturn and Pluto over each of the individual charts. And so I did want to touch on that. And I think that there's been a lot of focus paid on the Aries, and especially as we've been moving towards last week's new moon, the energy of Chiron, how it is that this wounded warrior energy has been showing up in a very immediate, instinctual, impulsive kind of way. And so all of us have been encouraged to look at our own warrior and what that's going to mean for us, the healthy ways that the warrior shows up, or the sacred or spiritual warrior and how that may show up. And so that's been part of our collective journeys individually. But now let's look at these two people, because these two people are on their own unique spiritual journeys. It's just so happens that a lot of it is, or some of it is, in front of the world. And so I want to start by looking at Will Smith's chart. I'm just going to put that chart up very quickly here. And there are a couple of things I noticed looking at this chart. So one is, just a few weeks ago, Saturn entered his 10th house. And so that is the very top of the sky. And this is a part of the sky that is about how the world sees us. It's the most visible part of the chart. And so we have Saturn here, and Saturn is squaring his moon and his Neptune right now. And so the moon represents our connection to the people. It represents the emotional connections we're able to make with others. And Neptune is an energy we often see dominant in people who work in film or music, because it is about sort of transcending previous limitations, but it's also about the illusions that we're able to create and work with. And given that he's got this Neptune in his 6th house conjunct his moon, well, Saturn right now squaring that, moving through his 10th house, and that is inviting cultivating the skill of emotional maturity, also being responsible where it comes to what's happening in terms of how people see you on a world level, how people see you from afar. But the other thing that's taking place in Will Smith's chart is that we have Pluto right now is starting to slow right down, is slowing down to a standstill. Will officially go retrograde at the end of April, but right now, and because Pluto moves so slowly anyways, when a retrograde is coming up, like 6 weeks before that retrograde actually happens officially, Pluto is already stationary. And so here we have Pluto standing still, or appearing to basically stand still in the sky, which is when Pluto is at the height of its power. And that Pluto is squaring Will Smith's Mercury, which is the chart ruler. And the planet that rules the chart is the planet that is the ruling planet of the sign on the ascendant. So that is an important symbol in the chart. And the ascendant is how we are perceived as well. Now, Pluto can speak to power, especially in the sign of Capricorn, and how the Pluto square in particular can bring with it experiences that feel unfair, that feel like there's a power that's bigger than oneself. And so we've got Pluto not just squaring Will Smith's Mercury, but consider this as well. It is going to be next week that I'm going to talk about the full moon that's going to be taking place. And the full moon that's going to happen in the sign of Libra is going to conjunct Will Smith's Mercury. It's going to square Pluto. And so having a new moon, but particularly a full moon, as a general principle in your sun sign, and Will Smith is a Libra, so having that as a general principle in your sun sign is a moment of emotional truth where a lot of emotion can come to the surface. But having that full moon on top of the chart ruler, squaring Pluto, I do think that this can represent a feeling that power is very strong. And that is going to be right around the time, within days of that, that the Academy is expected to make some sort of announcement around what's going to be taking place. Now, Saturn is also going to trine that full moon. And so there may be some elements there that also feel fair. And so we may see some of that coming up for Will Smith. Now, when we look at Chris Rock's chart, so I'll put up Chris Rock's chart here. We see in Chris Rock's chart that Pluto is in his 10th house. And it is squaring his moon. So it is both Chris Rock and Will Smith whose moons are ruled by Mars. And Mars, of course, is going to be meeting Saturn this week. So very consequential, just in and of itself. When the ruling planet of your moon is doing something in the sky, You feel that emotionally. And so both of these people are going through a very emotional time. And so we've got Pluto right now squaring the moon of Chris Rock. And I mean, think about what happened, right? This was somebody with a lot more power, exerting physical power, a show of force onto him, having him feel emotionally powerless. And so I'm sure that that is part of the different emotions that he's feeling at this time. Now you add to this, Saturn is on top of his sun. So we can see, I mean, it's so remarkable. It's almost like a moment that came together karmically, right? And that's not to say that anything was right? I don't agree with that. But this is just one way in which these energies showed up for these people as part of their spiritual learning, for these two individuals who had a moment where one person's transits and the other person's transits showed up in this way that ended up being a big cultural moment for a lot of us. And so both of them, with these strong Saturnian energies playing out, are being asked to be mature, to be responsible, but then those Pluto squares are digging up some very deep and very old wounds. And all of that is stirring for these people right now. So I think it is remarkable that, as Chris Rock put it, he's still processing. He's going to need some time to process all of this, of course, with all of these big things happening in his chart. I think that right now, especially with transiting Pluto, stationary square his moon, right? The height of its power square his moon. He's really going to need a lot of time for all of this stuff to be understood that much more deeply. And chances are, with Saturn there on his sun, it's going to be part of changes that he's going to be going through, understanding his identity differently. And I do think it may take him a little bit of time to really formulate the right words to talk about it in the way that he wants to talk about it. Now, the same is also true for Will Smith with Saturn right now in his 10th house. It's going to take him a little bit of time to understand and to recalibrate his relationship with the world. Pluto can speak to losses as well. And so can Saturn sometimes, but Saturn is more about patience. And so it'll be very interesting to see, because right now Will Smith, this just happened like a week ago from the time that this video is publishing. Will Smith is losing projects and roles, or being asked to postpone a lot of projects and roles for now. And so it'll be interesting to see how he navigates through this time. I do think next year, and I'm probably going to remind you of this every couple of weeks or so, March of next year is when Pluto will start moving into, and then retrograding out and into, retrograding out, and then really more comfortably moving into the sign of Aquarius. So we are right around the precipice of these big changes. We are right on that precipice. Big changes are coming up in less than a year's time from the time that I'm making this video. And I do think that given that both of these people are air signs, and particularly as soon as Pluto enters Aquarius, is going to begin applying a trine to Will Smith's sun, that will give him an opportunity to start to regenerate, to make changes based on a really core level of transformation. And I think the same is absolutely going to be true for Chris Rock as well, where he is right now engaged in some very deep lessons, getting very deeply honest with himself. But ultimately, it's part of a divine setup towards even more powerful transformations that are going to take place for him once we get to next year and Pluto starts entering his sun sign. So he is on the precipice of a profound rebirth where he may end up going in completely different directions altogether and transforming his connection to the masses, given that he has an 11th house sun. So those are some of my very quick impressions of looking at this moment. I think, of course, the moment is going to die down. I think right now, Chris Rock is on tour. It's fascinating. His tour is called Ego Death. Ego Death with Saturn right on his sun. I mean, really, it's so on the nose that you couldn't make it up. It's so profound. And I think that he is right now in a process and a transition. I've been talking to you about ego lately as well. And it's this idea of separating the false self from the more authentic self. And I think that he certainly is on that journey. Some level of his psyche, of his spirit, knows that. And now he's embarking on this this tour. I think right now, as he's at the very beginning of it, it probably feels like he has so much material prepared. It might feel a little superficial to him, but it'll be part of ultimately what helps him work through so much deeper issues. And as he's ready, he'll be speaking about that as part of ultimately launching in a direction of a rebirth that is going to start taking place for him next year. So I originally recorded this as part of a weekly video scope, but I think I'm going to publish this completely separately. And so I hope that you enjoyed it. And of course, I will continue to see you here on YouTube and continue to see you on the different websites where you can find me in the superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com and Synchronicity University and so much more. So thank you for watching, and until we connect again, take care. Bye.